The deepest question philosophy has ever asked is simple. Why is there something rather than nothing? Why does reality exist at all? At first glance, the question seems impossible to answer. If everything requires an explanation, then we seem trapped in an endless chain of explanations. Everything would depend on something else, and that something else would depend on something else. So eventually explanation must terminate somewhere. There must be something that does not receive its existence from anything else, something that simply exists, a necessary reality. This is where many classical theists begin their arguments for God. They argue that the ultimate foundation of reality must be necessary. It cannot be caused by something outside itself, because anything outside reality would itself be part of reality. Reality cannot have an external cause. If reality is everything that exists, there is nothing outside of it capable of causing it. Therefore, the foundation of reality must be uncaused. It must not depend on anything else, it must exist necessarily, and it must be eternal. At this point, I agree with that idea. There must be some ultimate foundation, but the question is, what exactly follows from this? Before continuing, I want to clarify what I mean by God in this argument. This argument is not directed at every possible use of the word. Throughout history, people have used God in many different ways, as a name for nature, the universe, a spiritual force, a metaphor, or a personal being. The God being examined here is the classical theistic God. This is the God of traditional philosophical theology, the ultimate foundation of reality, the God who is understood to be necessary rather than contingent, eternal rather than temporal, uncaused rather than caused, the foundation of all existence, possessing intellect and will, conscious and personal, not merely one being within reality, but the ultimate source and explanation of reality itself. The argument that follows is specifically about whether this conception of God is logically required by the existence of reality. The fact that reality exists necessarily gives us certain conclusions. Necessary reality must be necessary. It cannot fail to exist. It cannot depend on something else. It cannot have a beginning requiring explanation. It must simply be. But does this also mean it must be a person? Does necessity itself require intellect, a will, a consciousness? This is where the argument for God requires an additional step, because if God is identical with necessary reality, then God's attributes must be grounded in the very nature of necessary reality. They cannot simply be added afterward. The question is not, why couldn't necessary reality have intellect? The question is, why would intellect be necessary? The foundation of reality should contain what necessity requires, not what seems admirable, not what seems valuable, not what seems like a perfection, only what is logically required. Classical theism often appeals to the concept of essence. An essence is what something is. A triangle has an essence, triangularity. The essence of triangularity includes being three-sided, but it does not include being hot, it does not include being blue, it does not include having four sides. Those properties are not part of what a triangle is. They are additional properties. Likewise, if necessary reality exists because necessity requires it, then its essential features should be the features required by that necessity. Necessary existence, eternal existence, uncaused existence. But where do intellect and will come from? Where does personality come from? These are different concepts from existence itself. Existence is the condition that allows anything to be. Personhood is a particular kind of being within existence. A person exists, but existence itself is not automatically a person. A thing can exist without thinking. A rock exists, a star exists, a planet exists. Existence does not require consciousness. Therefore, consciousness cannot simply be assumed to follow from existence. Another important distinction is the difference between intelligibility and intellect. Reality is intelligible. We can understand it. We can discover truths about it. But this does not mean reality itself possesses understanding. A mathematical truth is intelligible, but it does not think. A physical law is intelligible, but it does not know. Something being understandable does not mean that thing itself understands. Something being knowable does not mean that thing itself knows. Therefore, the fact that reality can be understood does not prove that reality itself has mind. Reality must be intelligible. it does not follow that reality must have intellect. Now, another problem appears. If necessary reality can have properties beyond those required by necessity itself, what limits those properties? Why intellect? Why will? Why personality? And why not anything else? If the essence of necessary reality is not limited to what necessity entails, then what principle determines what belongs and what does not? Could necessary reality contain mathematical structures? Could it contain biological properties? Could it contain the properties of every possible thing? Could triangles belong to its essence? Could potatoes? Could rats? The point is not that these things are likely candidates. The point is that without a principle limiting what belongs to the essence of necessary reality, there is no clear boundary. Therefore, there must be a rule, and that rule is that only properties entailed by necessary existence can belong essentially to necessary reality. Anything else requires additional justification. The next step often used by classical theists is Thomistic proportionate causality. The argument is usually presented like this. A cause cannot give what it does not possess. An effect cannot contain something greater than its cause. Therefore, if intelligence exists, the ultimate cause must contain intelligence. But we need to examine this carefully. There are two different principles being discussed. The first principle, a cause must have the causal power to produce its effect. This seems reasonable. A seed has the power to produce a tree. The ocean has the power to produce waves. A physical system can produce new arrangements and properties. I accept this principle. But there is another claim, which is that a cause must already possess the property of its effect in some way. This is much stronger and does not seem to follow. A seed is not a tree. The ocean is not a wave. Hydrogen and oxygen atoms are not wet. Yet trees, waves, and wetness can arise. The cause possesses the ability to produce the effect, but it does not need to already be the effect. Therefore, having the causal power to produce something is not the same as possessing the thing produced. A Thomist may respond, we do not mean the cause literally has the same property, we mean it contains a perfection eminently. But this creates another question. What does eminently mean? If it means that the cause has the power to produce a property, then the principle reduces to the weaker claim, which I agree with, and that weaker claim does not establish that the cause itself possesses a property. A non-conscious foundation could have the ability to produce consciousness. A non-personal foundation could have the ability to produce persons. But if eminent containment means something stronger, that intelligence exists in the cause in some deeper sense, then that claim requires justification. Why must intelligence already exist in the foundation? Why cannot intelligence arise through the organization of reality? Reality appears to contain examples where new properties arrive from arrangements of simpler things. Individual water molecules are not wet, yet collections of water molecules are wet. Individual neurons are not conscious, yet a brain can be conscious. Individual components can form systems with properties that do not belong to the components individually. Therefore, the existence of a property does not automatically prove that the property must exist in the foundation itself. So the question remains, why must intelligence be contained in the ultimate reality? Why is intelligence different from wetness? Why is intellect a necessary perfection while other properties are not? That step requires argument. The question is not whether reality requires a foundation. It does. The question is what that foundation must be. Reality must exist necessarily. It must be eternal. It must be uncaused. But beyond those features, every additional property requires justification. A mind, a will, a personality. These cannot simply be assumed. They must be derived. And if they cannot be derived from the necessity of existence itself, then they are additions beyond what is required. Reality exists because it must exist. The question isn't, why does reality need God? The question is, why add anything beyond reality at all? And if no further addition is required, then the simplest explanation is not a divine mind beyond reality. It is reality itself.